recently Test Track just reopened from a refurbishment that this Test Track 3.0 replaces Test Track 2.0, which in turn replaced the original Test Track, which in turn replaced World of Motion. So, a lot of people, say that, Test Track 2.0 was not great. They say that they preferred the original Test Track, or some people even say that they preferred World of Motion. So, I did finally get to go. I couldn't go during pass holder previews of the attraction. I was just too busy with my regular work schedule. So, and then obviously this is Florida in the summertime, so it rains a lot. So, I didn't want to go in the rain either, because obviously they would shut the ride down anyway. So, I did finally get to go and experience the attraction on yesterday. I went on Monday to preview the official opening. Well, not really official opening. Today was the opening day, but I did go yesterday. It was a soft open, so I decided to go and try out this brand new version of Test Track. So, how did I like it? Well, let's find out in another of Michael's honest review as I review the Test Track 3.0 at EPCOT. So, I really want to make this clear. Prior to me becoming an annual pass holder, we had never been to EPCOT before. I had never been to EPCOT. I know that sounds odd, but we never went to EPCOT. I don't know why my parents made that decision, but we had never been. We had never been to EPCOT, so I never got to experience the original Journey into Imagination, or World of Motion, or Ellen's Energy Adventure, or Maelstrom, or any of the rides like that. I never got to experience that. I didn't go to EPCOT until probably it was when I became an annual pass holder. So in 2015, I became a pass holder, and then I thought, you know what? I had never been to EPCOT, so I'm going to go to EPCOT and see what this park is and what it has to offer. And now, obviously, I knew that EPCOT existed. Okay, I knew that it was Walt Disney's envision. He wanted to create a futuristic city where we would all live someday, and that's really what the Florida project was about. I'm not going to go into all this detail, because I did go into this detail already with my Reedy Creek, my Reedy Creek video, so I'm not really going to go into the history of EPCOT and everything, but EPCOT was more of a educational park. It was more really designed about edutainment. So you had rides like Spaceship Earth, which taught you about the history of communication. You had Living with the Land, which teaches you about crops from different parts of the world. You have with Ellen's Energy Adventure, you had, you learned about renewable energy. So it was, Epcot, and then of course the Living Seas, the original Living Seas was, taught you about, marine life. So Epcot was more of an edutainment type of park. It was obviously a lot different than what Walt had envisioned Epcot to be, but anyway, we won't go into that. But because I explained that whole backstory in that Reedy Creek video as well. I gave a very detailed description of what Epcot was supposed to be. But anyway, but these rides, these original rides were, more based around edutainment, okay? And that included, like, the shows like The American Adventure, which, teaches you about, the American history, and it's, like, even with Kitchen Cabaret and Food Rocks, those shows really kind of taught you about, eating healthy and even with Food Rocks, it's okay to, it's a show that taught you how to eat right, and it taught you that, everything is fine in moderation. And so Test Track was really kind of like the first. Well, let's get back to World of Motion. So World of Motion really kind of taught you about the history of transportation. So, the horse and buggy days all the way to, obviously now with automobiles and everything. And that was a 15-minute ride that, taught you about the history of transportation and everything. And then in 1998, they decided to get rid, or probably perhaps earlier, they decided, and World of Motion was an opening day attraction. It opened with the park in 1982. And then somewhere along the line, they decided to put Epcot's first thrill ride ever in the park. So they came up with the idea of Test Track, and Test Track was a way to show you how the vehicles, how General Motors put their vehicles through rigorous testing requirements before they hit the open road. And the idea was that you were the crash test dummy. You were the crash test dummy that was going to, be put through this rigorous vehicle testing. Now, obviously, you didn't you didn't crash and die or anything like that. So, but that was the idea. That was the idea for you to see how they, made the vehicles and how they test them, and what makes a vehicle, how they tested the vehicles before you bought them and hit the open road. So that was more of that edutainment type of thing. Even though it was really a thrill ride, it really it still kind of taught you, like, this is how this is how we build the cars, and this is, how we test them, and then when they're safe, we can release them to the general public and such. And that ran for a number of years. And And then somewhere along the line, it was decided that Test Track needed to be updated. It needed to be updated. So they closed the ride, and they did another refurbishment, and this one was called Test Track 2.0. Okay? It was the second iteration of Test Track, which is why it's called 2.0. And that one opened in 2012. And that one, it's kind of, it was kind of like, it was still kind of like teaching you how they, made your cars and everything, but it was more of a kind of like an updated version of it. And a lot of people will tell you, myself included, we did not like that ride. That ride was very cheap looking. It was a lot of black lights. It was a lot of, it was a lot of kind of cheap-esque, a cheaper version of the original Test Track. Okay? And in 2.0, it was more like you're going to build a car. The idea was you would go into the vehicle, the pre-show area, and you would tap your magic band or your park ticket. You would tap that, and then you would build your what you envisioned your car of the future to be. So it was all kind of like, you could customize it and everything. And then once you were finished, you got to choose from efficiency or power or a lot of the others. And then when you were finished, you would tap your magic band or your park ticket, and that would be loaded onto your profile. Okay, and then you would, before you would load into the vehicles, you would tap your magic band again or your park ticket, and then it would read your vehicle. It would store your information, and then you would go on to see if your vehicle passed the rigorous training. Again, it was okay. It was not. It was. I didn't really like it. It was, again, it was a lot of black light. It was a lot of, like, it's just it just looked cheap looking. It just was not great. And half the time, your vehicle wouldn't even show up on the board anyway, because, obviously, because, you have to build these rides for capacity. There was only, so many people, went through that ride that the computer would only pick, like, three of the cars to be shown. So it really wasn't, half the time yours wouldn't even show up anyway. So, and then after you got off the ride, you entered the post-show area, which you had the photo pass, which you could scan your park ticket or magic band, and then the on-ride photo would be taken. And then it was like they had all kinds of like different games and stuff. And then everybody remembers the cars. Everybody remembers, the vehicles in the post-show area for Chevrolet, because this one was, Test Track 2.0 was sponsored by Chevrolet this time. The first iteration of Test Track was sponsored by General Motors. Okay, and then the second one was sponsored by Chevrolet. And, that ran for, obviously a number of years. Let's see, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, closing 24? Or 25. It might have been 24. So, 20-something years it ran. So, and you know, it was like, you know, it's not really interesting. It's not great. You know, building the car was not, you know, a lot of people's, it was not their cup of tea. It wasn't like, oh, wow, that's really cool. You know, we get to do this and this and this, and then we get to see how it, you know, stacks up and everything. It really, it just wasn't great. It wasn't great, and the ride really wasn't that great either. And then fast forward to, I think, last year or something, at D23, they announced that a new version of Test Track was going to be coming to EPCOT, and it was going to be again sponsored by General Motors, which is the only EPCOT pavilion that has a sponsor anymore. None of the others have sponsors anymore. So for those that don't know, back in the day, Disney used to rely on sponsors to sponsor things, which is why you had Muppet Vision 3D sponsored by Kodak, which is why you had Test Track presented by General Motors, which is why you had, you know, things of that nature. I mean, you get it. You get it. So, you know, back in the old days of Walt Disney World, that's you know, the rides had sponsors, and then one by one they kind of just, you know, either left or Disney just decided to, you know, take over the ride or and such. But but anyway, now we get to, but Test Track is the only one that is the only ride, at least to my knowledge, if I remember correctly, it's the only ride in the all of Walt Disney World area now that still has a sponsor. It's the only ride that still has a sponsor, all right, which is kind of insane and crazy. But, you know, but anyway, we were told that a new version of Test Track was going to, a new version of Test Track was coming. It was going to be called Test Track 3.0. And it was going to draw inspiration from the world of motion. So, me never really experiencing EPCOT in the early days, I never got to experience World of Motion. I never got to experience the first version of Test Track. So I didn't know what to expect. I was like, World of Motion? Okay, I really don't know what that is. So I had to look it up, and I found a very old video on YouTube. And it's not the greatest, that's not the greatest quality, because obviously this is, 1982. The technology back then was, not the technology they have nowadays. But I did get to see the World of Motion, and I thought that was a really, really interesting and neat ride, and so when they said that they were drawing inspiration from the World of Motion, I was like, okay, this could be interesting. I never got to experience World of Motion personally, but that sounds interesting. That sounds really interesting. So to start out with, so let's start with the outside of the building. So the outside of the building, you may remember in the old Test Track, they had a great big, great big pillar in the front of the building. They, even in the concept art, they decided to take that down, which I think is great. I mean, that was not, I didn't really like that. That was just kind of took away from the, because you're looking at the building and, it just takes away from that, that kind of wow moment. So, they took down that structure, and now all it is they've got the circular portion of the so above they have the track, and then below it they have like a little circular area with an updated wait time, posted wait time sign, lightning lane sign, and a single rider sign. So I really like that. That's really cool and interesting. I don't think that there's a pre-show in this version. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I just decided to go through the single rider line, and that single rider line is really interesting because they took out all of the they took out all of the computers where you got to build your car and stuff. So now you're just constantly moving. So I thought that was really great, you go up to the load station, or even let's continue outside. So when I went into the building, it seemed a little. I mean, the standby queue is great. It's bright. It's very colorful. It's very like, what you would see if you were to walk into a showroom and see all these cars there and stuff. So that was cool. And then I went, the single rider way, and then it kind of got a little darker, and I thought, it's not gonna be like, this is not great. I hope that, the ride's not this way. It was a little darker. And then I got to the load area, and the load area was again a little bit dark, and I thought, oh, okay, this is, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about this. It's kind of a little bit darker than 2.0 was. But it kind of matches the cars. So the cars have been completely redone. They're more of a futuristic looking of a design. I think that they could have done a little bit better job on the front. In the concept art, they showed us what the vehicles would look like, and it was a really sleek design. And then on the front of the car, you had this kind of like white strip that was, it went all the way around the vehicle, and it didn't quite turn out that way. I mean, it's still pretty close to the design, but the actual light on the front of the car is not as long. So I was like, it's close to the concept art, but it's not really. So anyway, you board the car. Again, there's no touch points here because you're not making the car anymore. So you're just loading into the vehicle. So you get into the vehicle, fasten your seatbelt, and then you head out toward the first part of the ride. And I thought what was really nice is they decided to put in a giant window. They put in a giant window where you can look below and you can see the load area. You can see light. You can see light, and you look down and you see the queue. And I thought, that's great. That's great. That adds a little bit more light, because 2.0 didn't have that. It was just a black wall. There was nothing there. It was just a blank black wall. So this one it feels more open, and then you have the seatbelt check, and then you start the ride. You start that climb up, and you have the announcer, say that before we can focus on the future of automobiles, we first have to take a look at what came before. And I think what's really cool about this is there's two ride hosts now. You have the kind of the guy. I don't know if it's the same guy. I don't know if they got him to come back. Sure sounds like him. But there's him, and then there's a female voice. That's the voice of the car. So the car actually has a personality in this, which is I really like that. I really, really like that. The car's interacting with the guy, and they're talking back and forth. So I really, really like that. I really, really like that. So anyway, so you go up, and you have this kind of like, so you have this very kind of really cool looking city, and then the car says, "Let me show you what it looks like from my point of view," and then the whole thing just it disappears, and it turns into it turns into a projection mapped. So imagine Starlight, the parade. So imagine what that looks like in the show building. So I know it's kind of hard to describe, but it's very computer-esque, and so it changes from a real city to what a computer would envision a city to look like, which I thought was really cool. And then you take off, and you do that kind of little swerve type of thing, and then you make the turn, and then you go fast again, and then you make the second turn, and then you go into which is a really cool set. They built a completely new. It's like you're going into a garage. So you're going into a garage, and there's all kinds of propping and bicycles and power tools and all kinds of stuff. All really interesting things. And then you go into what is like the what used to be like the efficiency room, where the steam would come out, and it was going to test your efficiency. So this one, now you go through that part, and instead of you can look to your right or your left depending on where you're sitting, and the computer says, hey, why don't we change this car's design? And it makes it into a smart car, and then it changes into another type of vehicle, and then you go on your way again, and this time you're going through like a drive in the country. So I mean, it's the same track layout. They didn't change the track or anything, but this one you're driving through like the countryside, and it's beautiful scenery. There's greenery everywhere. It's a sunset, and you're just driving through, and it feels really peaceful. And then there's a nod to 2.0, where you almost hit the semi, and then you swerve out of the way, and then you go into the final part of the dark ride version of the dark ride portion of the ride, where where the computer says something like this is the future of automotive can be a wonderful thing, and then you pass by and you look up and there's this giant screen. And I really don't like screens, but I don't know how you could do this in real life because we haven't gotten that far yet. But you look up and there's this giant screen, and it's a huge futuristic city. You're looking at it and it's pretty, and it's, and then the computer says, says something like, well, why don't we take why don't we take a drive, and then you shoot out of the building, and then you're into the thrill part of the ride, and you go 65 miles an hour. You're going through the whole outside area, and then you have that one sign above you that says 65 miles an hour. They changed that. This is now more of kind of like a digital type of sign. And not that the old one wasn't, but this one just looks a little bit more sleeker. I really like this sign. The old one really didn't work all the time. And you would drive through it, and the 65 would pop up as soon as you were like past it. So it was like, so it didn't really work all the time. But this one, works a lot better. And, it shows you 65, that you're going 65 miles an hour, and you're turning, and then you slow down, and then you go back into the show building where you get the goodbye from the computer and the host saying that, our drive has come to an end, but yours is just beginning. It's you can, it's more of a like a positive message for the future. Like, our ride is ending, but now you can take your own ride to the future, which I really like that message, because in Test Track 2.0 you didn't get that. It was just like, you're designing this car, you're putting it through the testing requirements, and then it's over. And it was like there's no emotional connection there. This, I really like this, because you get the goodbye from the computer and the male host, which is our drive is coming to an end, but yours is just beginning, which I really like that, because it's an optimistic view of the future, which we could use right now. Let me tell you, okay, we could definitely use a optimistic look into the future right now. So I like that. And then the ride ends and you disembark. So I want to spend a couple minutes telling you what I like and what I didn't like. The sets are absolutely amazing. They spent the money on this attraction. They really did, because these sets look absolutely amazing. They got really good projection mapping, and they've got, where the car changes shape. And, so, I like that. The one note that I would have liked to have changed was toward the end. So when you shoot out of the building and you're taking that, that fast car ride, and then you get to the very, you get toward the end, and, and then the car goes that whoop, okay, it's like, yeah, okay, guys, we couldn't really fix that. That was really one of my only big complaints is, I don't like, we're shooting out of the building, we're going fast, and then we go around the corner, and all of a sudden we're doing this thing, and it's like, okay, it's like we couldn't fix that. We couldn't make that smoother, okay? It's like I understand the vehicles need to, obviously slow down. They don't crash and, hit each other and stuff, but do we really need to do the okay? It's like, okay, do we really need that? But whatever. But like I said, part of the indoor queue I think could have been lit a little better. It's a little bit dark in there. Not that 2.0 wasn't, but that really kind of fit the theme of 2.0. But with this being a brighter version, it was like, yeah, we could have lit that better. We could have lit that better. I mean, overall experience though, I love this ride. I really love this ride. This ride has they very clearly they opened things up. They made, in the queue, they made that great big hole in the side so you can see outside, which adds a lot of light. There's just more stuff to look at on this ride with the kind of you going into the garage, if you will, and seeing like the the power tools and the other automotive things. And then the last part of the indoor portion before you go outside, that great big giant screen of the futuristic city. I really like that. I really like that because that brings to me, that makes me think of what Walt Disney envisioned EPCOT to actually be. Because EPCOT was built to be a city. It was not built to be a theme park. It was built to be a futuristic city where someday we would all live. Okay? So that really kind of put a smile onto my face, like, oh, they got this right. I like that. That is really, really cool. And then again, the message I think is great. It's an optimistic, view of the future, which is what EPCOT is supposed to be anyway. Which I really love. It really brought me back to, like, because again, I didn't get to experience, the original EPCOT, but I, have learned a lot of things from, reading stuff about Walt Disney and, him talking about EPCOT and what EPCOT was supposed to be, and it was supposed to be a futuristic city where we would all live, and it was supposed to be a bright version of the world. An optimistic, that's the word I was trying to find. An optimistic version of the world. So I really like that idea. I really like that, that we have a ride that is still, that now is, still kind of edutainment in a way, but, you really don't think about that because, but when you're riding the ride, but it is, teaching you about, this is how different vehicles look and, how they, how the computer sees the world, and it's all kind of, it just teaches you about, the, the message is so wonderful. The message is fantastic. I love it. It's a future, it's an optimistic future. It's an optimistic, where it's about optimism in the future, which let me tell you, we could all use right now. Okay. And, every time, because every time I rode, I really love the ride more. I went on it like 3 times, not back to back, but, I did go on it 3 separate times during the day, and I just love the ride. I love it. It's great. It's thrilling, but it takes that kind of like thrilling, like now I'm going to go on a nice car ride, and now we're going to see, what the future can be. So I really like that. I really like this iteration of Test Track, and I really hope that it sticks around for a long time, because this optimism is what we need now more than ever. We need this optimism. I think that if Walt Disney were to go on this ride, he would love it. He would absolutely love it, because it's an optimistic, view of the future, and that was him. That was all about Walt. He was, he was, steeped in nostalgia. It was always, it's always said that, he had one foot in the past and one foot in the future. So I think that he would absolutely love this new version of Test Track, because it teaches you, like, this is, what the automotive industry was, and now at the end it teaches you that, now we're going to teach you about, the optimism of the future. And I think he would have absolutely adored that. He would have absolutely loved it. Now, thrill ride, I don't know. I don't know if Walt Disney would like a thrill ride, but he would absolutely love that dark ride version, that dark ride part of the ride, because that was all about Walt. That was all about Walt. He loved, he was an optimist. He was the eternal optimist. He always knew that tomorrow was going to be better. He always knew that tomorrow was going to be a better day, which is why, in the Carousel of Progress, it's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, which is why, we all say, have a great, big, beautiful day, or have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, because we all love Walt Disney. We all love Walt Disney. He's our hero. He is our hero, and, there are moments where, we think that he would be proud of this art form. Not all the time, but this version of Test Track is really something that I think that he would really enjoy. So, but let me know in the comments how you feel, but I really love this version of Test Track. I would, if it wasn't for the lighting in the beginning of the queue, I would give this an A+. I'm giving this a A-. Otherwise, I have no problems with this ride. I have no problem. Well, except for the, at the end where it's like, like that. It's like, oh, we could have fixed that. But overall, I would say A-. A-. I think this ride is a lot of fun. You're going to have a great time. And, yeah, go check it out. EPCOT, Test Track is now open. So, but if you enjoyed this honest review from me, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel for more content. Let me know if you've ridden the ride. How do you feel about it? Do you like it? Do you miss the old version of Test Track? No one, everyone's going to say they miss World of Motion. There's just no doubt about it, okay? But I think that Test Track 3.0 is a vastly great improvement over 2.0. The first thing I said is, when I got off that ride, I was like, man, they did such a great job on this iteration of this ride. And everybody around me was like agreeing. They were like, yeah, that was the best ride ever. I don't know about the best ride ever, but it was so good. And it brought a smile to everyone's faces. And I think that we really need that nowadays. We really need it. So, but again, if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I have put out honest reviews of Disney Starlight. I put out the new verse for It's a Small World, so you can go check those out. But that's all for now, and we'll see you on the open road. All right. Thank you very much, and we will see you real soon.